often we expect that our partner is going to pick up on the same things that we pick up on. So we expect that our partner is going to know what we need and be able to pick up on just our mood or this or that. And I think we have to constantly be reminding ourselves that if you don't have an HSP partner, that they're not picking up on those things. Like, honestly, I think I know my husband's moods sometimes better than him when they're coming, like if I can see him starting to get tense or not in the best mood and he's like, oh, I'm good. It's like, no, you're not good. But I don't think they can do the same for us. And so I think it's constantly really thinking about our differences, honoring our differences, and reminding ourselves that we each have our own gifts and they're not the same.
Illuminance specializes in developing sensory processing sensitivity, a natural high sensory intelligence present in 30% of the population, co-creating with the power of humanity to consciously evolve towards balance. This session features trained high sensory coaches, facilitators, and consultants who coach other high sensory people and partner with organizations globally. To contact them directly or to find out about our programs, please see the details in the description.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We have a hot topic today. It's one that's a special interest of mine, and it's about HSPs in relationships. And we're going to specifically talk about how to keep yourself happy and sane while being an HSP in a relationship. But before we jump into it, we're going to just quickly go around the room here and have everyone briefly introduce themselves. So let's start with Cara.
Hey there, I'm Cara Menz, and I'm an empowerment coach for middle-aged women who are maybe empty nesters who are not finding that they've found their spark yet and maybe what they want to do in the rest of their lives. And I help them reignite their spark and embrace the power that's truly within them. And I have a really awesome epic approach that talks about eliminating things, participating, integrating, and celebrating those journeys. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Snyder. I'm an intuitive life balance coach, a diplomat in energy psychology, and I'm also an author. I partner with highly sensitive women to find their magic by releasing their limiting beliefs and feeling comfortable in their skin.
I'm Stacy Ingram, and my company is Cultivating Your Courage. My website's here shown below. And I work with both youth and adults on peak performance in athletics and in life, and just really focusing on all of the things that make us mentally tough. And so that's kind of my area.
And I'm Lisa Morrison. I'm an HSP coach and tapping practitioner. And I support women in finding their freedom to create a life that's in line with their values and their true desires. And I live on the East Coast of Canada, and you can look me up at highlysensitiveperson.ca. All right, so we're going to jump into our topic on HSPs and relationships and how to keep yourself sane, how to keep yourself happy. In any relationship, there's two pillars, I think, to having a really healthy relationship. Number one is knowing you're responsible for your own happiness. Not expecting someone else to make you happy, knowing what you need, knowing what's going to make you happy, and doing that for yourself. And the second pillar is that you can't make another person happy. You can do things that make you enjoy your relationship together, but you cannot make another person happy. We all know that our happiness has to come from within us. So the big challenge I find with being an HSP in a relationship is two things. One is, staying in tune with my own needs while being in a relationship, because we're so highly empathic, and we can sense what's going on with other people, and we can often put other people before ourselves. And the second thing, a challenge is, that I found is like bending over backwards for others in order to maintain the peace and harmony in the environment, because that's so important to high sensory people and people with a lot of empathy. You just want to feel at peace, and tension can be a real anxiety ridden thing if that's what you're experiencing in your relationships or in your homes. So I was just I'd like to turn that over to the group here and have, hear from each of you about what your experiences has been with these two challenges and how you've learned to deal with it.
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I think one of the things that is always difficult is that often we expect that our partner is going to pick up on the same things that we pick up on. So we expect that our partner is going to know what we need and be able to pick up on just our mood or this or that. And I think we have to constantly be reminding ourselves that if you don't have an HSP partner, that they're not picking up on those things. Like, honestly, I think I know my husband's moods sometimes better than him when they're coming, like if I can see him starting to get tense or not in the best mood and he's like, oh, I'm good. It's like, no, you're not good. But I don't think they can do the same for us. And so I think it's constantly really thinking about our differences, honoring our differences, and reminding ourselves that we each have our own gifts and they're not the same.
I so agree, Stacy. It's so funny. We were shopping for a new bed yesterday. We've had the same bed 16 years, and I'll be transparent. It's a soft side water bed, which makes everybody laugh. But the man in the bed store thought it was great. Well, for me, it's soothing because it's soft and comfortable. So we purchased a new bed yesterday, and I said to my husband, I'm really sad. And he's like, why? Then why did we buy a new bed? I said, because it's important for us and for our backs. Well, I don't understand. And the old me who wouldn't have realized that he doesn't understand the physical piece of it for me. I'm not attached to the bed, but it's about what it gives me as far as soothing and comfort. So I just really had to say to him, listen, I know you don't understand. What you're saying is not helpful. And that all I need is just for you to say to me, I understand you're sad. That's all. But the other piece of it is I knew I had, as you said, Lisa, to begin with, to be okay with it myself. As much as I would have loved for him, and I don't think he still understood at the end, I knew I had to be okay with, I'm sad about having to buy a new bed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and asking for our own needs, I think that's a good example of recognizing what we need and trying to ask for that, or at least trying to, even if our partner doesn't completely understand, at least having us voice what we need and try.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Respecting our differences and then clearly communicating them. I've learned is the need of why I need certain things, and then learning, because my husband is not HSP. In a way, I think he is, but we still respond to things differently. And I think when your partner, you need to know your partner cannot fulfill all your needs and is not on this earth to do that. We need to fulfill our own needs. And I've learned that immensely, that I'm not looking to my partner, my friends, even anybody, my kids, to make me happy. I've learned that I need to do certain things in my life, especially as an HSP, to calm myself, to calm my own nerves, and to explain why I'm doing certain things. And then I kind of come back and say, okay, now let's chat, or let me explain why I needed this. And even if they don't understand, it's kind of like you don't also always need an explanation back. Do you guys find that where you are venting? I'm a verbal talk through things type of person, and I'm not looking for answers.
Right.
But, yeah, that's a typical, I think that's like typical of women in general. I mean, I do hate to stereotype, but women tend to process out loud and talk. Women love getting together and talking about things, and men kind of go to the cave. That's why there's this expression about the man cave. They go to the cave and think things through, and they come out when they have a clear solution for themselves, and they do like to give solutions. So what I'm hearing in general from everybody in common is that clear communication is really a key part of maintaining harmony and, happiness in the relationship. And, what goes with being able to clearly communicate is being able to stay in tune with your own needs and taking that time and space to connect with yourself, and know what it is that you need to convey to your partner. And I'm wondering, just from the group, how people go about getting that for themselves. Because when you do live in a house with another person or other people, it can be busy, it can be cramped, it can be hard to carve out that space for yourself. And also, there's so many, social conditioning, so much social conditioning around how a relationship should be. For example, if you are married, you need to live together. You need to sleep in the same bed together. You need to share everything. There's no personal space. In my case, I do not play out my relationship like that at all. I do have my own room, and we do sleep separately. And when at first we didn't, but in communicating that, I really had to come at it with a soft glove, right? Because I don't want him to feel like I'm rejecting him in any way. So I had to really think about it and take some time to myself. And I knew I didn't want to say, I can't sleep with you. I had to own it and say, I sleep better on my own. And you can see how that would come across in two different ways. So I wasn't rejecting him or blaming him for me not being able to sleep. It was simply a personal need I had. And also, sleep is huge. If you don't get enough sleep, you're not a happy person. You're not going to be happy in your relationship. So that was one of the things that I had to have a big talk about with my partner, about my need for sleep and having a space of my own to process and retreat to for that very reason. So, communication's key, and being in touch with your own needs, and being able to go outside the box and do what works for you in your relationship in particular.
I love that, Lisa. I had not heard of anyone being as clear as you are about describing wanting to or sleeping better by yourself. But I have a friend in Wales who they do the same thing, except for they start together. And then when they're ready to go to sleep, they each have their own room. She's a highly sensitive individual also. And they discussed it and talked about it in a way, but you shared it so beautifully on how to talk about what you need without blaming or making it be somebody else's issue. So I really love that you shared that.
I think the listening piece is really key also, because both of you guys are saying that, we need our partners to be active listeners. And sometimes we might need to explain why we need that. But I think at HSPs, it's super important to us to feel seen, valued, and heard. And I think that's important for everyone in a relationship. But with HSPs, it's a little bit heightened. And so, as you guys have also mentioned, I don't think that always means we're looking for them to have the solution. We just want to feel sort of heard and accepted. And so I think that if they understand, the active listening piece is critical for us, I think that also helps, because it doesn't have that same tone of I'm right, sit down and listen to me. It's more, no, I just need to feel heard and valued. That's all.
Right. I just had this conversation with my husband. If I have something exciting happen during the day, or maybe something like this, or that I've connected with a lot of people during the day and I have ideas or things I need to work through, I can't bombard him when he gets home with all of that. I have to we people have to stay in tune with, maybe there's something happened at their work during the day that made them not able to have our energy, have that happen with them. We are in tune. So we need to actually use our intuition with our partners to say, is this a good time for me to either share this deeper thing, because we're so in depth? And I've had my husband say, that I need a time out here. It's a little too deep for me right now. I just need to go water my plants or whatever. And me taking the time to go walk and get some exercise ride my bike, just get away, and just to understand that it's not against me. It's not to take it personally, that in time we can connect on that. But I think getting away, getting that exercise and the movement that you need in for the day, and even journaling stuff down. Like if you need to vent and you don't feel there's anybody there that's got open ears, write it out. It really does help to write things out or to call a friend.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion.
I do really like the writing out. One thing I started doing when I moved in with my partner, because I lived alone for the longest time, and when I moved in with somebody else, it was kind of a big adjustment for me, and I was very caught up on what was going on around me externally. So I started doing morning pages, which is from the book The Artist's Way. And it really helped me. And it actually revealed things to me that were hidden from myself because of all the external stimulation that I was experiencing. And on the note of speaking to your partner and not wanting them to problem solve, but just needing a listener, I will often start off by saying to my partner, I really need to talk something out. You don't have to solve it for me. I don't need that at all. I really just need to talk out loud. And it helps me sort my thoughts out. Are you okay with just listening right now? So you kind of set things up for success right away instead of feeling irritated after the fact that they're throwing solutions at you when that's not what you wanted in the beginning.
On the flip side of that too is when speaking with your children. And they're coming to you with something, knowing that we don't need to fix it, possibly. Do they need somebody to listen? Or do you want me to help you fix this? Do you just need an ear? Or, I have to say that because I'm a fixer. I like to think of things, think of solutions as well. And just being that advocate for them that I'm just I can be here for just an ear as well. And I'm not going to try to fix it or tell you what to do. Can I just hear you out? I think being heard is so important without any advice giving.
It really is. And I think one of the things that we tend to forget both with our partners and our children is that being HSPs, because we're so in tune to details in our environment and just every little piece of everything, it often makes us more perfectionists and makes us to have really high standards often that other people aren't noticing all the things that we're noticing. And so things that we feel like, oh, this room's a mess or this is whatever, someone else walks in and doesn't really even notice the things we notice. So I have to constantly remind myself of that is, that we tend to have really high standards and to be a little careful about that because other people don't notice things the same way.
Are you saying don't sweat the small stuff, Stacy?
Yeah. And honestly, it's very hard for me because I am type A to the Hilton. I like everything in its place and I like order and all of that. And my family's probably adapted to it pretty well, but I know that I'm over the top with it. And it is hard for me to control it. And sometimes I have to remind myself, it's honestly okay if something's sitting on the counter. Like, it's fine. Just leave it there, I
really liked Cara's point in, actually asking the other person, do you just need an ear or do you want me to help you figure something out? Because one of the things that is a challenge for HSPs is it's a boundary issue, and it's us feeling like we need to solve everybody's problems and that we should, and that's what people want. And so that's just something to really look out for as an HSP. And it's a good practice to get into exactly what Cara said is when a friend, your significant other, your kids, family members come to you, to just say, what are you looking for here? Do you just need an ear or do you want me to help you figure something out? And that can really just keep the harmony in your relationships around you as well.
Or just provide a resource. I'm a resource junkie, so I have resources all over. So that's a great other way without you even having to speak or give how about a resource? If there's a touchy situation and that you have a resource for somebody that you just don't know how to communicate. I just did that this week. I found a really great book for a friend that had lost a son, and it was a great book. And I just had to ask, is it okay if I send you the link to a book that I really think would be helpful? I had to ask permission first too. And in due time, it was a good thing. So, but that's another way to help when we want to just fix and step back, but yet still in our heart, do what we need to do. Because I know it's hard when we know there's certain people on our minds and certain relationships that we know we can feel it for them, right? Like we can feel that somebody else is having a hard time, and it's like, we have so many ideas and resources. And I've just really had to just ask permission because I have so many people on my mind lately.
Yeah, me too. Good point, Cara. And that's really hard for me too, because I do have so many resources, and we do see, and I want to track back to a couple of points. And again, that boundary issue is important, but then I know for me, sometimes I will tend to hold on to it. So I think that it's important for us to be I'm not a big journaler unless I'm in a lot of pain, and then I will, or I'm looking for inspiration. I'm not a daily writer. I don't like writing. My hand gets tired. So what do? I get quiet. I breathe. I go within. But I also will tap, as Lisa does a lot of. I'll use some other techniques like havening just to calm myself so that then I can remember to ask permission. I can let go of the worry, because you're so right. Just our sensing it's unbelievable, those abilities. And that's why I like the term high sensory intelligence, because that's what it is. We're able to see and feel so much. Sometimes it's just really overwhelming with the person we live with our children, and then sometimes in those that we're very close to. So I think these are all really good relationship ideas for anyone, honestly, but for us who feels it and sees it, it's vital. It's part of our self-care, really.
Yeah. So I'd like to.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry, Stacy. I'd like to move on to another topic, and that's the topic of conflict in relationships, because HSPs are notorious for being conflict avoidant. And of course, we can feel the slightest bit of tension in the air. And so we walk around, perhaps knowing that there's something wrong, sensing there's something going on with the other person, but then we don't want to address it. But it's very important, because in every relationship, of course, there's going to be some disharmony, some conflict, some disagreement, some difference of opinion or perspective on things. And what are you all doing to what have you found to be the best way to approach that for yourself in your relationship?
I wrote a few notes before today, and my thing is respect the differences. Respect your differences. This world revolves with so many unique, amazing individuals with so many great things that they offer the world and their insight, but respecting people's differences. And I think as HSPs as well, we know that hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. And we can see that. So we have that time to reflect and go, gosh, what is going on with them? And I think we can teach others to give people the benefit of the doubt a little bit, a lot, to say, instead of saying how could they do that, or how could they be like this, or how could they keep ruining their lives or ruining my life or do these bad things. And even if it's the slightest thing for us, it could really hurt us. But really introspecting and saying, maybe something happened in their life that they haven't resolved yet, or they haven't had any comfort from, or therapy for, I really give people the benefit of the doubt on that end.
I think, though, the one thing we also tend to do is we're not very good about setting boundaries. So sometimes there are times where, just because of how, as HSPs, we tend to be people pleasers and things like that. Sometimes HSPs get into narcissistic relationships, and obviously that hurts us very deeply. And so I think we also have to be very clear with ourselves on things that are happening with others. And sometimes we do just have to set a boundary and say, this is how far I'm willing to go. And then that's it. And then be willing to stick to it ourselves, because we know it's for our own health and our own, well-being to be able to set a boundary with people when we need to.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's just with narcissists. I think you made a very good point with that. And that takes a lot of courage to set that boundary, Stacy, you were talking about. I think it's important in other relationships. We had some very, very good friends, and trying to carry on a discussion at some point, and this was years ago, before things got really tough here politically, I finally had to say, I love you guys, but I don't want to, it was the husband, I don't want to talk about religion or politics, because I was constantly being bashed. And it got to the point where it really upset me. Interesting, though, years later, he said to me, and this is where I think sometimes letting go and setting that boundary, he said to me, he's very religious, I'm more spiritual. Neither one's right or wrong, but he said, you have more faith than I do. And I thought, if I hadn't backed away, set my boundary, said, you've heard me, how I feel, I didn't need to keep saying anything. And it hurt me a lot to listen each time I would go visit. So we don't know when we set a boundary how that's going to shift the other person. It's not our business. It's not for us to take care, but we don't know. I mean, I always think that it's important to set it for ourselves, but it's also important for the other person.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's a really good point, Bonnie. Because setting a boundary isn't only for yourself, it can be a gift for the other person and just help in overall growth in both parties in the relationship. And it does take a lot of courage to put that out there, to speak your truth. And it can shift things, and it can shift things for the better, as it seemed to in that particular example that you just gave, Bonnie. So
two simple words for that, and I've shared this a lot, is to say, let them. Mm-hmm. When you have things happening at work, when you have other people talking about certain things, I mean, you do have to set that boundary like you did, Stacy, seriously, and say, and all of us, Bonnie, you said that too, about politics and, and religion at work. Like, this is, you need to set your ground and say, this isn't giving us a good vibe here when you're talking about that certain thing. So there is a point where you do need to speak up and say, this is causing more harm around like other people's and energy. And if you're seeing it being talked about in the workplace, and you work with a group of people and you notice that it's bringing people down, I hope you have the energy and the strength to say to them kindly, this isn't the right place for this, because it's really bringing all of us down. And I hope you can speak up as the group person in your team at work or at home or wherever, and just state that and give them those words to say, here's 2 words, just let them have their own opinion and just stay out of it because they will figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And when I hear you talk about that, it just makes me think that the key piece to all of this is confidence in yourself. Mm-hmm. Confidence in your what you know to be right, confidence in your communication skills. And that's obviously something that you have to develop within yourself, and something that you should be working on wholeheartedly if you want to be in a relationship and have a healthy relationship with other people. So that's a lot of what needs to be in place to be in a happy relation, a healthy individual in any relationship.
It is that letting go of our limiting beliefs about how we feel about ourselves or others. And I just wanted to say, Cara, the other piece that I know I think we do naturally when we don't feel triggered by something, but in a conflict, and Lisa, you asked about conflict situation, is affirming what it is. And in the case, I was thinking about that as you were talking, Cara. I thought, I could walk up to the group and say, isn't it great that we can all talk about a lot of things and then move into what you said? Because a lot of times if we can affirm that person or that group for something positive, then they'll accept the suggestion, and we know how to frame those things. And this is good communication for all of us. We are just more in tune and maybe more reticent not to say anything. And Lisa, I'm glad you continue to say, and Cara, we need to have that confidence within ourselves. That's the magic of who we are, is that we see what's hurting people and what uplifts them on both sides of the fence, and our partners for sure.
And to see it's needed. We are this more intuitive and soft spoken, and feelings are more needed right now in all walks of life and all areas of life, because that vulnerability we need space for that. And we need people to share. And it just starts with one person. One person, you could be that person to say, I'm going to share something vulnerable, maybe with somebody that looks like they might be having a hard time. If you feel it in your gut, in your throat, in your heart, wherever, that might be a good time to share. You will be released of so much, and you will help somebody. And I think that's a whole thing with this relationship thing, is we are in a big relationship with everybody in some way, shape, or form. And that vulnerability piece is key to a relationship, I think, as well, as if you're safe in that environment.
Well, and you mentioned softness. And Lisa, you brought this up to begin with, sharing. Softness used to be taken as a negative. And I think as I'm listening here, we want to embrace that softness in our relationships. We want to be able to have that confidence, which is the masculine. So we're opening more to the feminine. So that's what our discussion feels like to me, that beautiful marriage of both within us.
Yeah, well, this has been a really enlightening conversation. I'm so glad we were able to touch on this, and there was a lot of great things shared about how to stay sane and happy in a relationship as an HSP. And some of the things that I picked out that I'll just throw out at the end were, having confidence in yourself, being able to communicate, having good boundaries, being vulnerable. I really liked that. That is definitely a key piece there. So we're going to wrap it up now. And thank you so much for being with us, our listeners and our viewers. And we look forward to our next conversation. And we hope to see you back again.